Hello, I'm Dr. Ron England, and this is going to be lecture number 2 of my lectures on C# collections. And in the previous lecture, I showed you an array list. The array list is actually not a strongly typed list. You can actually set that every element of an array list is of type object. That gives you a lot of flexibility in that you can have any type of object be put into an array list. But what I want to do is look at something that actually is strongly typed. There's some advantages to going strongly typed. Specifically, the fact that you can push specific implementations of the objects that you have, meaning that they have to respond to different types of interfaces. That may seem like a lot more work, but in reality, it actually gives you much more robust programming. And of course, there's performance differences with using something that is strongly typed versus something that is not strongly typed. Now, the example that I gave you before, where I actually showed you a list, or an array list, it's essentially going to be the same thing here. I can create the list. In this case, I'm actually creating an array list. I'm creating a list and ABD. I'm using a lot of the same code here. So there's my list box. There's my grid view. I can add the element, in this case C, to the list. It is sortable, and I can actually reference the different elements of the list by index. But what we're going to look at here, I'm going to go ahead and jump back over here. I'm going to stop the code, and we're going to look at the code behind this thing and see the differences. Essentially, all I'm really interested in here are the differences between this and the previous example, which was an array list. Now, one big difference here is that this uses systems.collection.generic, and it's just in a different library, where the other, the array list itself was in system.collections. Most of the time, I mean, when you're not looking at critical performance, they're essentially interchangeable in the array list and the list. But if you look at my declaration of the list versus the declaration of the array list, you'll notice that I've got in the brackets here string. What that is it's telling you that this is a typed object. This is a list of strings. That's what you're going to get there when you do this. Now, essentially from that point on, the code is identical except for one thing here. Down here in the bottom where I do the where I actually put the text here and I say list of I, well, because it's strongly typed as a string, I don't have to put the .toString in there, because previously with an array list, the indexed element of the array list is going to be returning an object of type object, which has to be converted to a string before it can actually be placed into the text element. Well, this is strongly typed. We have defined right here that this list is a list of strings, and therefore it is strongly typed. And therefore down here, when I actually return them, it's going to be of type string and can be put in here. Well, that's one example here that we've got. Let's look at another example, and now you should be able to see this concept of typing. Let's look specifically at something that we have here called a dictionary, which is another thing that's in the collections here. So let's go to the dictionary example, and let's go ahead and run that. Now, in the case of a dictionary, and I'm going to show this to you, I had to modify the code quite a bit to actually do the dictionary. Dictionaries have key value pairs. So the way that I've written the code is that I put the key values on one line. This is a key value, A and alpha, and then I can put a different key value on each individual line. Now, what I'm going to do in the code is I'm going to separate the key value pairs by new line characters, and then I'm going to separate them again by the commas. So we'll do C, comma, Charlie. And if you do this and you create the dictionary here, I'm going to still take this, create a dictionary, and then I'm going to go ahead and data bind this dictionary to both the list box and the grid view. And you can see the differences in what you get when I just bind with no other parameter set the list box, the dictionary to a list box, and what I get when I bind this to a grid view. Now, if I want to add to this, I still got that method capability of adding, so I'm going to put d delta. Okay, I can add to the list and see that I've actually got that delta that's been added to the list. Now, the list index here in a list and in an array list, I entered the integer indexes, but I'm dealing with the dictionary now, and the index is actually that first element here. So if I want to see the parameter that's at that, notice in this case it returns alpha. I'll put the list index A, which was alpha. If I put in B, okay, it's going to return the element, the dictionary element at index of B, which is Bravo. So as you can see, I'm able to create an index, in this case that was a string, and an object which was a string. And now let's actually go and look at the code of this one here. So this one's got a little bit more fun here with the code itself when we're looking at this dictionary. So let's go ahead and stop this thing from running. Okay, now in this case I declared this dictionary with two strong types. Remember that a dictionary has a key and a value. In this case, the key is a string, keys must be unique. Value is a string, values do not need to be unique. Key value pairs of type dictionary. Coming down here, it's a little bit of difference in code here, and this is just making the code kind of interesting. If I look at how I filled the list, and this is a trick that some of you might find interesting. If you remember, what I did is I had key value pairs separated by a new line. So what I did is I first split what was in the text box with a new line character, which gave me a string array, and that's going to be a string array of things that are separated by a comma. So basically I have A comma alpha is going to be the first S1, S1 of 0, and B comma Bravo will be S of 1. Okay, well, now I need to go ahead and actually separate them so that I can add them to the dictionary again. So for every string in this array of each line, I'm going to go ahead and split it again by the comma. So now I'm going to have S3, which basically has the first element and the second element, or elements indexed at 0 and element X at 1. So in the case of S2, S2 is going to be A comma alpha. Well, S3 is going to be a 2-element array, which will be the A of the 0 indexed element, and alpha, which is the 1 indexed element. And I can add that to the dictionary. The dictionary requires you to have, when you add, you have to have the first strongly typed object and the second strongly typed object. And remember that the first one has to be unique. It's a key. Binding is exactly the same. So that's going to be the same thing. Okay. Now, when I went ahead and I added that new element to the list, okay, same thing. I just make a new string by splitting on the comma. I add it with the key value pair, which is going to be element 0 and element 1 of that string array that I created. And down here, when I actually go ahead and show you the element at that index, well, the string is going to be the element that we pull out of the text box, and I'm going to show you in a label the dictionary value at whatever that value is, which in this case is whatever you entered into the text box. I could actually put tbindex.text right here without even creating a new string. I just wanted to show you that it was a string element. Important things to remember here. Okay, in this case, my example used string, string. Key was a string, value is a string. But dictionaries can take any type of object as both the key and the value. This is really good for creating libraries of objects that are referenceable and searchable by the keys. Okay, so you can get very complex with this. This will be some really fun programming if you want to start working with this. The last two, I'm going to show you a couple more of the different types of collection objects that are very useful. This is one that you'll find dictionaries are extremely useful. Also, if you want to use a key value pair that's sortable, there is such thing as a sorted list. It works exactly like a dictionary, is strongly typed, and it allows you to actually do sorting. If you want to do something that's like a dictionary but it is not strongly typed, I recommend that you use the hash table, which is in systems.collections. That's another one that you can use. So this should be getting you kind of familiar with the concept of collections and the different types of collections that you can use. Now you've got some real programming power of things that you can do. We're going to use these in later programs, and we're actually going to extend them to much more complex types of objects. Hopefully this has been useful to you. Good programming. Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye.